The Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan is perhaps best known for giving the world its gross national happiness index. Now, that's a measure of how happy people are. For the Bhutanese, the GNH index is a national indicator that's not any less important than the GDP, which is how the rest of the world measures progress. But that's not to say that economic growth does not matter for Bhutan. The kingdom is facing a serious youth unemployment problem. Many young people have been forced to leave the country for better jobs elsewhere. And Bhutan is trying to solve that by rethinking how to improve the situation for its people. It's looked not just to boost jobs or the economy, but has turned to mindfulness as well. Saksith Saiyasombut explored Bhutan's new mindfulness philosophy in the latest episode of CNA Correspondent.
Descending from the Himalayas to the tropical plains, an uninterrupted flow of water, plants and animals shape the mindfulness city. Cascading terrace fields become lively neighborhoods nested along naturally connected ecologies.
The slick promotional video by an international architecture firm promises a new utopia, one that's supposed to be in harmony with the country's conservation efforts and Buddhist mindfulness philosophy, where the brightest minds will gather in what should be, one day, among the most technologically advanced places in the world. Function follows form, dictated by the environment, not the other way around. Semiconductors next to wood carvings, artificial intelligence learning from ancient Buddhist scripture. It sounded too good to be true, like a 21st century Shangri-La. Somewhat skeptical, I traveled to Gelefu to see what this utopia the Bhutanese have envisioned is really like. Arriving at the viewing platform, the Bhutanese tell us we are one of the first international news teams to see the place where one day the Gelefu mindfulness city will stand. From here, we're just seeing a fraction of it. On the surface, this looks like any other big mega-city project, but Gelefu here in Bhutan wants to do things differently. They want to incorporate other aspects that makes Bhutan, Bhutan, mindfulness being one of them, being also part of the whole city project name itself as well.
And where are we now?
The whole project will span an area of more than 1,000 square kilometers. The whole of Singapore would easily fit in here with room to spare. The Gelefu Mindfulness City will have a new international airport, the country's second, but it will also be flanked by 2 large protected natural zones in line with the country's commitment to natural conservation.
We must have something that is unprecedented, something that the whole world can look up to. On that note, many link mindfulness, when we say mindfulness, to spirituality, to meditation, peace of mind. For me, I personally feel mindfulness city would be that we all should be mindful about what the 21st century needs, to be mindful about what the world needs, to be mindful about our dreams, and to be mindful about what we should do right and what we should not be doing.
Is this an alternative pitch to capitalism?
Well, that one could take it in any way you want it. It can also mean this is the beginning of redefining capitalism. It can very well mean it. It can mean in a totally different sense. All what I don't want this to be linked to is to be happy with less.
Well, Saksith joins us now from Bangkok. Good morning. So tell us a bit more about what you've learned about this Bhutanese philosophy of being mindful. That's number one. But as the former Prime Minister, made clear there, as you spoke to him, not about being happy with less either.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. There's a bit of a misconception when people think about Bhutan and that gross national happiness. I mean, it's always often being portrayed as a replacement or as an alternative to the gross domestic product, where it just only measures economic growth. I mean, the gross national happiness includes other factors as well. I mean, it's not about necessarily the individual well-being, because our measure of who's happy between you and me is different, but more on a policy level, what the government is actually doing to maintain the the well-being of people with, for example, access to healthcare, the environmental concern, which Bhutan is very proud of. So these are the things that that makes gross domestic happiness for them. But then on the other hand, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We had a very interesting time, and we also had very candid, interesting conversations in Bhutan about what the 21st century, not only capitalism would be, but also how that actually balances out with mindfulness, and how Bhutan is pitching their vision about what it is thinking is the future with that mindfulness city, with that 21st century Shangri-La, or whatever you want to call that. But also we talked to the current Prime Minister of Bhutan, and he gave a TED Talk a decade ago, and he actually emphasized that Bhutan is not a big, in his quote, he said that Bhutan is not a big monastery with happy monks in there. So basically, he's pointing out that Bhutan is a country, it's a small country like any other countries that has its own struggles, but also strives for its own version of happiness.
So, Saksith, Bhutan obviously, placing high priority on the well-being of its people, as you mentioned there, but on the ground itself, I mean, what's the sense that you got? Are the people there really generally happier in your view compared to all the other places you've been to and people you've met?
Obviously, I mean, we've been there only a week and we were just scratching the surface. I mean, were people happy? And that, again, really depends on the definition of it. If you look at the conventional metrics that we have already mentioned of theirs, like when you had 29% youth unemployment not too long ago, when you have a private sector that is dwarfed by public sector, and so much so that you have an economy that leaves no options for its youth than to leave the country, with a percent of the population of about 750,000 people going to Australia, I think then it is an indicator that things are not going as smoothly. And this is something that the government and also the country's revered monarch has also recognized as well in his National Day speech last year, saying that something needs to be changed, the economy needs to be changed, and this is exactly what they are doing. I mean, the fear, obviously, of course, it's good that, in their eyes, that there are Bhutanese going into the world and seeing the world, but of course the fear is that they are not coming back. So are they happier? I mean, we have talked to some people, and they have said also as well that this whole focus on happiness and mindfulness is also and also the government policies that that is giving people access to healthcare and free education may or may not make people content or complacent, and this is why that the strivingness or the eagerness to achieve more is maybe not as accelerated as in the West, for example.
Well, that said, success in this day and age, the conversations center a lot on balance. You just have to speak to millennials or Gen Zers to get that. I mean, and among other age groups as well. Did you feel in general that the Bhutanese have it, that balance, or perhaps something close to it? Maybe. I mean, as a late stage millennial myself, I mean, I feel that there's a tranquil contentment when I was there in Bhutan. But then again, it's about what you want in life and and how you want to achieve that. And obviously on a government level, on a country level, it seems that there's something going on, that is something going to change, that something needs to be changed, because as we have seen, the status quo is not acceptable, and that they are changing there. But at the same time, that they want to elevate and scale up the mindfulness philosophy on a higher level, but also with a higher revenue, so to speak. And this is basically the whole concept of this mindfulness city, that they want to balance these things out and also invite the world that are subscribed, that see themselves being reflected in this philosophy, that they can come up and build this new vision that the Bhutanese and that the Bhutanese government is pitching to the world. But I mean, we talk to so many people, we have seen so many things, and they have a lot of thoughts, I have a lot of thoughts, but what these thoughts actually are and what I think about it, well, I think the best way to find out is when you tune into CNA Correspondent tonight on CNA. All right, Saksith, thank you very much. That's a more mindful Saksith Saiyasombut talking to us live there from Bangkok. A CNA Correspondent episode titled Bhutan, the Happiest Place on Earth, premieres tonight, 9:30 p.m. Singapore, Hong Kong time.